Okay, President Joyce, we're all set whenever you're ready.
I hope everyone had a good lunch. We will now resume discussion on mailing C3 and C3A with staff member from off.
Thank you, staff member Efrem. I believe at this point we are in, just to reorient everyone in the public too, we are on 855-143-0010, the general requirements section of the PPL rules. There is slated one policy discussion for this section. So at this time, it might make sense to go ahead and talk about the one policy discussion, and then we'll go back and talk about the general rules section all together. But just doing the policy discussion at this time. A little bit of info or background related to this. Staff had originally proposed these rules listed as statute only, but then thought perhaps it was easier to reference, to refer to the minimum equipment rules in Division 41-1035. But in doing so, I believe we caused more confusion because not all the requirements matched a PPL. So for example, paren 1G capital C states provide notification by posting a closed sign at the entrances for the pharmacy hours. The board has opted to allow operation of a PPL outside of the pharmacy hours. Thus, this language can be deemed extremely confusing. So at this time, I do apologize. There was one last minute update prior to submitting. So what was sent in mailings and provided to the board has slightly changed. So you can see on paren E, a little bit of the language modification that occurred there. And I believe there was one other section down below too. There was a slight modification. We'll talk about all of those in just a moment. So staff at this time is recommending the following proposed language. The right language. A pharmacy that has a PPL must ensure a PPL displays required patient notification in accordance with the following requirements. So this was just making language sound better. Capital paren A. So per ORS 689-515 paren 4, this is the requirement or the ability to substitute a generic. The ability to substitute via a generic sign that is required. As part of this law also, there is a requirement that the patient has the ability to contact a pharmacist related to and the pharmacist assessment if they can or cannot comprehend this sign. So paren G you see below is also incorporating to meet and satisfy the requirements that are in ORS 689-515 paren 4, just for clarification on why that is there. Paren B, ORS 689-564 paren 5, this is the requirement to have signage for the right to free and competent oral interpretation and translation services. Paren C, per ORS 689-561, this is the availability of prescription readers and competent labels, compatible labels. Paren D, per ORS 689-615, this is the requirement to display the certificate of licensure at the place of business. Paren E, this is the change of language here. We're proposing to be a little more clear, but I understand this might also need a little further clarification. Paren E states if short-acting opioid antagonist services are provided at a PPL, signage in accordance with ORS 689.806 is required. This law would not apply unless the outlet is providing short-acting opioid antagonist services in real time at the locker, which may be a business model someone chooses to use, but this would not include dispensing a short-acting opioid antagonist that are requested by a patient via prescription or OTC. This would apply more to a setting like a vending machine model that would require this postage. And paren F, requirement is pharmacy contact phone number and pharmacy hours of operation for patient assistance. And paren G, again, just a little bit of clarifying in the language to make it read or sound better. Patient notifications requirements can be complied with by postage signage. Wait, I apologize. Patient notification requirements can be complied with by posting signage on the PPL or through an electronic video monitor that requires the patient to acknowledge their review and understanding prior to retrieving medication from a PPL.
Wait a minute, you added this though. You didn't read this. Look, you missed this part. You added that after, remember?
I
Don't have
apologize.
an understanding.
Can you
Okay.
make it a little bit larger?
Sure.
So I apologize at this time with the new changes. Patient notification requirements can be complied with by posting via signage.
No.
No, via signage shouldn't be there. Postage signage on the PPL or through an electronic video monitor that requires the patient to acknowledge their review and understanding of the patient notifications prior to retrieving medication from a PPL. I apologize for that. Thank you. With that, I would like to open it up for board discussion on this language, and I believe Board Member Kroger is first to go.
Board Member Kruger, I have no comments. Thank you.
Board Member Chin?
To see the I accept button after going blah, blah, blah. No other comment.
Board Member Hall?
Member Hall, thank you. I don't have anything. I just was hoping you could, say what you said, again for E, the short acting.
Yes, and I will try my best to articulate this because I know this is hard to explain. 689806 is required to post signage if the service is being, that there are the offer to be able to get a short acting opioid antagonist service there in real time. So in the scenario of a pharmacy preparing a prescription for dispensing from the PPL that is already, the patient has requested it, it would not meet this law. So that isn't the intention. You would not need to have a sign that says the pharmacy can provide short-acting opioid services unless you're doing like a vending machine scenario, which means in real time, the patient hasn't requested it prior to, you can have indication on the locker stating we provide this service and the patient can get it. So you just have to be compliant with that signage and postage notification related to that law if you're providing that service. Is that helpful?
Thank you. I don't have anything else.
Board President Joyce?
Yeah, on that section, so we're talking about if what, Suboxone or something like that could be,
Naloxone?
naloxone, I'm sorry, can be dispensed at the PPL, and we need that signage, is that, I'm trying to grasp the scenario.
Yeah, Staff Member Efremov. So if a patient requested a prescription to be refilled or for the pharmacy to grab an OTC product and to put the OTC drug into the locker for them to pick up later, that would not meet the law requirements in ORS 689806. If the pharmacy decides to set up a locker, we don't know what's all out there, that maybe they have a locker PPL style function on one side and more of like a kiosk or vending machine set on the other side as an OTC, and they are providing that product in real time at that moment for the patient to access, they would need to have the signage requirements that are compliant with that law.
Okay, and the definition of signage, like,
We could pull up, do you mind scrolling over to the policy discussion? I believe ORS 689806 is listed on there. Maybe if we read that language, that would help us a little bit here too. I apologize. I am not necessarily prepared to speak to a lot of this. So ORS 689806 says notice of availability of short-acting opioid antagonists. This is paren 1, a retail or hospital outpatient pharmacy shall provide written notice in a conspicuous manner that a short-acting opioid antagonist as defined by ORS 689800 and the necessary medical supplies to administer the short-acting opioid antagonists are available at the pharmacy. So if you're providing that service, you need to somehow provide written notice in a conspicuous manner that the service is being provided.
that's clear-ish. That's clear, thank you.
Vice President Kirkbride?
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Board Member Patel?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
You and Board Member Pinedo?
Nothing to add, thank you.
And Board Member Smith?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. All right, then we will open it up for any discussion on anything in the general section. As I mentioned, there were no other proposed changes to the rules, except as we just discussed in that policy discussion. So I'll do a round robin to see if the board members have any other additional questions or comments you would like to make related to the general requirements section, starting with Board Member Chin.
Thank you. No additional comments?
Board Member Hall?
Member Hall, no additional comments. I guess this is a good place to just bring up. I know, in the comments, there was some confusion about prescriptions that require counseling, so just maybe referring to what the general requirements are of a Colette, right?
Yep, that's a great point to remind. There was a bit of confusion, I think, too, on where maybe the board landed or comments on what previous requirements were related to hours of operation, who provides counseling, how counseling can be provided. So knowing that you need a pharmacist must be compliant in a pharmacy with Division 115's pharmacist counseling rules and when you are required to offer and how. But also, I believe that there also is if you want to scroll down a little bit more too, just making sure we captured all the other components too. That the pharmacy contact phone and pharmacy hours of operation for patient assistance is available for not only the machine and then the contact information as we just read previously related to if you're doing written counseling, that it would be you can access to a pharmacist and the availability of accessing that pharmacist for counseling or critical components. Thank you. Board Member Joyce?
No questions.
Vice President Kirkbride?
Thank you for reminding me. There were several comments around like an on-call pharmacist. So I just wanted to clarify, let's say you don't have a prescription drug locker. Your business model could include that your pharmacy contacts have an on-call pharmacist now, right? Like that's allowed in our rules. Like you could have pharmacy business hours, but you could provide a phone number for like after hours care that like exists today. So for the people who are concerned about that, that would simply be extended to this PPL, that you could have that same model extended to your PPL where they could contact a pharmacist on call, as long as they have the ability to contact a pharmacist. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the pharmacy's business hours, but as long as they have the ability to contact a pharmacist, and that's part of your business model, then you would be meeting the requirement, correct?
Staff Member Efremoff, I think that makes sense. I do think the other part that might be important to keep in mind here too, we understand that a lot of states have different rules that might be a little more strict. And depending on setup, some companies that might be in multi-states, I know some of them go to the strictest rule of whatever state it is. There's nothing that bars them to be more restrictive if an outlet does choose that they want to have an on-call pharmacist available at the machine to counsel in real time or any other services provided. The board is taking a stance that, the bare minimum of what the requirements are. So I do appreciate you highlighting that there were concerns about access to a pharmacist and counseling maybe being needed in real time. That's something that could technically be offered if someone still was concerned about that. It's a great point to raise. Board Member Patel?
Nothing to add.
Thank you. Board Member Benito?
Nothing to add.
Board Member Smith?
Board Member Smith, nothing to add.
And Board Member Kroger?
Board Member Kroger, nothing to add.
And Board Member Chin? Or you?
I think you started.
Sorry, I apologize. Thank you. All right, then we will move on to the next set of rules. Just for clarity too, for the public, I believe the mailing that went out to the public, there are a bunch of different divisions that are being struck. So I just wanted to maybe pause for a moment to let you know that in the way that it will be listed potentially for when rules hearing would happen, OAR 855-143-15 for registration is proposed to be struck. OAR 855-143-20 registration, change of owner, location, and PPL pharmacy is proposed to be struck, along with 143-25 registration closure, 143-30 non-resident PPL, and 143-50 personnel. So that would take us to the next section of repealed, not struck. Thank you. Words matter. Next section for security is OAR 855-143-0100. There have been no proposed changes to these rules, and the majority of the comments were in support of this language, or were topics that were previously addressed by the board related to this language. But I want to open it up for the board to discuss the security sections, starting with Board Member Hall.
Member Hall, there was a comment about just some language changes, and I don't know if we care too much to change it, but it was for, parent one. I think security measures was kind of vague, and standard precautions was recommended. Just the first statement, the pharmacy and the PIC must ensure a PPL. There was some question about what is the pharmacy? I mean, can we say outlet in PIC, or is pharmacy what we generally use?
Staff member, from our pharmacies are a consistent language that we do use for how we articulate it. Do you have strong feelings about changing the security measure language to standard precaution? I appreciate you raising it so that boards consider this entirety.
I don't know, but I have to go back to what the exact comment was, this board member Hall. So I don't know, I'll leave it up to everybody else, but that was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Board member Joyce.
Board Member Joyce, yeah, having discussed, the Board of Pharmacy for years, I wanted to just address the, security measures. There were some comments on that, some, verbiage, talking about having cameras, and I know that we had gone back and forth over the years, regarding security footage. And so I just wanted to state that what the board has done is just made it, broad to use appropriate security measures and monitoring of inventory to prevent theft and diversion, because there were several comments there that, specifically pointed out the potential for theft. We basically we're saying we're leaving it up to the pharmacy to provide that, level of security measure to prevent the theft. So I know, we've gone back and forth regarding the use of security cameras, as I mentioned, but reason, we're not specifying that and putting that into rules is because we want the pharmacies to provide the appropriate security measures to prevent theft. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Staff Member Efremov. I think that it is a lot of the comments we received too related to it might be broad language, but again, for you in your setting, what is appropriate security measures might be different for someone else in a different setting. So depending on the equipment you're using, the technology you're using, the location that you're in, I appreciate you adding that clarification so that everyone is able to know the board considered these things, has thought about these things, and they might be expectations depending on where your location is and how you operate. Good clarity. Vice President Kirkbride?
I'm reviewing that comment now, and it looks like the confusion was around the term monitoring of inventory, and depending on what system you use, monitoring of inventory could mean a certain thing. And so the suggestion was to utilizes appropriate security measures to prevent theft and diversion instead of monitoring of inventory. So I don't know if that's something we want to, consider. I mean, I could see how monitoring of inventory might be confusing. So that might be something we want to contemplate. But otherwise, I would say, I think this addresses the 4 main points. It's succinct, and we do want to keep it very broad so that the outlets themselves can determine how they meet these requirements. Thank you.
That is a great point. I'll have everyone go around and then maybe we can ask that question related to Paren A specifically. Board Member Patel, your thoughts? Oh, one, sorry. I have the numbers wrong.
Just the one, right?
Yeah, or no, any of the section, any security questions, comments, whatever you have.
I don't want to change anything, but as I mentioned, I think in my previous board meeting too, when we talk about security for this new prescription locker, they're like pretty expensive. That can go from $250,000 to $500,000. And they have like all the security. They have a better security system than, to be honest with you, in my own pharmacy, even though we have two. So to be honest with you, I don't think so. We should add more words. When we talk about this super expensive devices, of course, they're going to have more tightened security, because you want to protect that prescription locker. It's not like easy to, you're just going to replace another, $250,000 or $500,000 worth of prescription locker. So I'm not too much worried about security. We should not add anything. I think this one is looking just fine.
And Board Member Benito?
Board Member Pinelo, yeah, I don't have any concerns with this section.
You, Board Member Smith?
Schmidt, no concerns. Thank you.
Member Kroger?
Board Member Kroger, I always find something new when I read these again and again, but
Yeah.
my actual concern is really around the use of the word dispenses. It's here and it's actually in the next section as well. Because the definition of dispense is the preparation and delivery. And I don't want this to be confused with like a machine that does do the preparation. This is just delivering ultimately the prescription. Do you kind of see where I'm going there?
Yes.
And I don't know if it matters that much, but I would hate for it to be somehow confusing or misused in a way that people are referring to these rules as opposed to, I don't know what the other machines are called that,
It's a kiosk.
type of situation. So I don't know if correctly delivers prescriptions is more appropriate than dispenses based off of kind of how I read the definition of dispense.
Staff Member Efremov, I think if we are looking at this as an extension of the pharmacy will call, and a pharmacy you are dispensing prescriptions, this still is preparation and delivery. This is the component of, I hear what you're saying. I could see it both ways. I think traditionally we have looked at this as a completed process and looking at this as connected. Open to hear other board members' thoughts, and I think I'd have to sit with a little more. To me, dispensing does seem like the correct word and not delivery, because it's not just delivering, because it is the will call. It's not a separate function. Because it is still part of the pharmacy dispensing the prescription, but I could see it different ways. Feel strongly, happy
I
to,
don't necessarily feel strongly, but I just want to make sure that it's clear that this is not
it's not a kiosk.
not a kiosk.
Makes sense. Board Member Chin?
No additional comments, thank you.
Okay, I want to pause for just a second too. I don't want to lose that great note that Board Member Kirkbride had just shared, so we can keep an eye on that. And I wanted to go back around too with the comment that I believe Board Member Hall and Board Member Kirkbride had raised related to paren 1. Does the board maybe want to entertain striking and monitoring of inventory seem to be the proposal? So it would read, sorry, the pharmacy, do you mind?
Oh, sorry.
The pharmacy and the PIC must ensure a PPL utilizes appropriate security measures to prevent theft and diversion. Because monitoring of inventory could be a process of or example of preventing theft and diversion, I think might be part of the rationale. So maybe Board Member Hall, do you mind kicking it off for us on this one?
Board Member Hunter would support that.
Board Member Joyce?
Yeah, I did strike it. That'd be great.
Board Member Kirkbride?
Yes, I support that.
Board Member Patel?
Board Member Patel, no comments.
Board Member Benito?
Board Member Pinelo, no comments.
Board Member Smith?
Board Member Smith, I think striking it makes it more broad, so I'm in favor of that. Thank you.
Board Member Kroger?
I'm in favor of this update. Thank you.
Board Member Chin?
I'm okay with the update.
Okay, it appears that we have majority, so we will do that update. Does anyone feel strongly on paren 4 to change the terminology of dispenses?
Farmer Joyce, no, I think let's just keep it because it's an extension of will call. It completes the process of dispensing, but it's not dispensing.
Thank you.
Releasing it or whatever, but yeah, I want to keep it.
And there still is, depending on what all gets changed here, if you go to rulemaking process and other iterations of looking at this further and maybe on a different day, seeing things differently too, right? And how we assess to be consistent in our rules and how we use the right language.
I remember Kroger, and worst case scenarios, we run into some sort of enforcement case and can deal with it then.
True, and hopefully we won't because of the different, it actually requires a different registration to do a kiosk. So hopefully there will be clarity within that, and we don't have any in our state yet. But hopefully someday soon. Okay, great. That will wrap up that section for now. We'll move on to technology then, 855-143-0205. Similarly situated as we had for security, there haven't been any proposed changes to these rules. It seemed that there was a majority of support with some other different comments here and there, but would open it up to board discussion at this time, starting with Board Member Pinedo.
Board Member Pinedo, I don't have anything on this section.
Thank you. Board Member Joyce?
For Joyce, I mean, this section's been reviewed over, I mean, several times, a couple times maybe. Yeah, yeah, it's fine.
Board Vice President Kirkbride?
The only thing that stuck out to me is someone commented on in parent 3, the use of the word enforce. I'm trying to think, we do use that pretty frequently throughout our rules, enforcing policies and procedures, so it seems appropriate, but did stand out to me in the comments. Other than that, yeah, I think it's all makes sense and didn't see anything else that stood out that we would want to look at. Thank you.
You, Board Member Patel?
Board Member Patel, no comments.
Pinedo, sorry, Board Member Smith?
Board Member Swift, no comments.
Board Member Kroger?
No comments.
Board Member Chin?
No comments, thank you.
And Board Member Hall?
Member Hall, I had the same thing about enforce, but if that's a common theme, then it seems fine.
Staff Member Brock, we do have that in many of our other rules, and usually is a critical component of the pharmacy, not just developing and implementing, but enforcement is usually a critical component of compliance. Okay, with that, then we will move on to the next section. It sounds like, scroll back down. Policy and procedures. So this one also has a policy discussion, but it really is the whole section anyway. So for this section, helpful reminder, because I do think some of the comments, because this was verbally shared when we reviewed and talked about rules in board meetings and was not added to the actual survey monkey questions. It's important for everyone to know that we went through the requirements of Division 41 for the pharmacy policy and procedures in OAR 41-1040 and did not just, so we took from that and only listed what would not be redundant or that needed to be further articulated related to a PPL and a PPL's function. So with that, it is critical for paren 2A, making sure that there is that crossover of all policy and procedures required in Division 41 to be specific to PPL, because we didn't want to be redundant and list all of those here. This should be all of 1040 and then in addition to, and there were some questions and clarification regarding paren K. A reminder on that too, since the board has a requirement that non-prescription items may be stored in a PPL but must be in a segregated area. This policy, or there was a suggestion to add this as a policy to make sure that it encompassed that act and that would not already be called out in Division 41. So big picture, that's why we had addressed this the way we had, and it appears that clarification could have assisted maybe in getting better comments related to that, but staff did get some really good comments and proposed some edits, as you can see up here, for some additional clarity. Again, staff does recommend keeping paren 1. I know there were a few comments on that. That is our standard language. That is in 1040. It's just typically the clarity that we have utilized in our process and how we write rules related to this type of section for policy and procedures. We just talked about paren 2. And moving down in paren 2, there are a few additional strikes. Let me get my notes here. So for paren B, for technology utilization, I thought it might be helpful too that we go through these one by one and try to understand what they are to make sure that they are still needed. To account for the PPL's technology that must be utilized. That's not something that's necessarily accounted for in Division 41. Operations, I think, is one the board had put in question before and was hoping to get some feedback on. We didn't necessarily get any direct feedback on this one. This one could be seen potentially maybe as duplicative if it's only referring to machine maintenance, but we thought of this as being something broader as operation of how to implement all of the rules of how the PPL interfaces with software, inventory, downtime procedures, kind of being a more broad catch-all, because there is an accounting for maintenance for equipment in a different section of Division 41. You can see on paren D, this is the first one that calls for a change. Thank you, whoever provided us this language. Seems much better and clearer. Controls to prevent, detect, and respond to theft, diversion, and unauthorized access. Pretty clear what that might mean. Again, with paren E, remembering that the board had discussed a policy of what would be safe to put in the PPL. So for example, you wouldn't want to put in refrigerated drugs if you don't have some kind of cold drug storage management within your PPL, or potentially drugs that need to that have other manipulations that need to occur after prior to dispensing. So the language here is clear in capturing that criteria for determining which prescriptions, devices, and supplies are appropriate for placement in a PPL. Paren F, determining access, who may access, how, when, if it's a maintenance person who has to go, all those other circumstances related to that. Paren G, patient permission and communication. Again, the board had a very broad must require. This is how the outlet gets there to meet the board's rules. Paren H, again, much better language. Thank you. A process for secure stocking, retrieval, and return to stock has been proposed by one of our feedback comments. Paren I, record creation and maintenance. I do think it's worth noting that record keeping is in 1040 of Division 41, but that's only for record keeping, not creation. So this is actually a little bit more broader in that language. And we propose to strike paren J because we do think at looking Division 41, 1040 paren B, operation is testing and maintenance of pharmacy systems and equipment seems to be very much in alignment what this could be related to the PPL. So staff has provided a recommendation that you wouldn't need this. This would be duplicative. And we just talked about paren K. So with that, those are the changes that have been proposed at this time. We will go around for board discussion, starting with board member Joyce.
I appreciate the changes, and in addressing the feedback. This looks clear. Yeah, thank you.
Vice President Kirkbride.
I really like the change in parent E. That's great. As well as H. I don't have any objection to K. I know there was a comment on that. I think that's clear. So yeah, looks good to me. I don't have any other additional comments. Thank you.
Member Patel.
Board Member Mitchell, no comments.
Member Pinedo.
Board Member Pinedo, no additional comments.
You, Board Member Smith.
Board Member Smith, no additional comments.
Board Member Kroger.
No comments, thank you.
And Board Member Chen.
No comments, thank you.
Board Member Hall.
No comments.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Appreciate all that feedback and discussion. Next section is records. There have been no proposed changes to this section either. Again, we're majority in support, but there were some other discussions to identify. I did want to highlight to the board, there was a discussion in previous board meeting in February related to paren 1C, identified errors or irregularities. We did not receive any comments on that section, but also wanted to just kind of flag that for the board if you wanted to have further discussion or articulation of what that is, or if you feel like that's clear enough, because no further comment was provided, but I didn't want to lose sight of that. And starting with Board Member Kirkbride, if we could discuss this section, please.
No comments.
You, Board Member Patel.
Board Member Patel, no comments.
Board Member Pinedo.
Nothing to add.
Remember Smith?
Board Member Smith, nothing to add.
Remember Kroger?
Board Member Kruger, I just have a question on the identification of the patient or patient's agent and what are we imagining that to be? Are we requiring? What would we be requiring to identify the patient or the patient's agent? Because I can see that being a little bit confusing. Like, are we requiring a photo ID to be scanned at the kiosk, kiosk, look at me. Or is it sufficient that the patient is given a 4-digit code and they can give that code to whoever they want to give that code to, and that is sufficient to be the identification of the patient or patient's agent? So just wanted to maybe get a little bit of clarity. I understand we need to kind of know who's picking it up, but how does that come practically?
Yeah, I think that's a great question for the board to discuss as looking at, just to get everyone lined up on the call, paren 1, we are looking at, I think, could you scroll down?
One.
No, B, sorry, 1A, capital B, the date, time, and identification of the patient or patient's agent and contents retrieved. So if someone could get there potentially with a barcode, I'm thinking of like when you order something at Home Depot and go get it from the locker, they give you a code that can scan. If the pharmacy can trace back who that individual was, would they be able to identify the patient or patient's agent and the date and time and contents of that? Would that suffice for the board? So I do think maybe we could let's finish our round robin with this and then ask that question from every board member, if that's okay. I apologize. I don't want to sidetrack for board member Chin and Hall to be able to give their feedback in general. Board member Chin, other thoughts on this section?
Like in general, no comment, and then I'll be on round robin for the others.
Thank you. Board member Hall?
Remember, I have no general comment.
Okay, then let's start with board president Joyce, if you don't mind. What does paren 1 capital B mean to you? And do you maybe have any other suggested language or articulation of how someone could be compliant with this?
Board President Joyce, I think you should leave it broad. Date, time, identification of patient. It's up to the pharmacy to ensure that information is accurate. And so I would say leave it for the standard of care, standard of practice, what the pharmacy deems as appropriate. If they have communication with the patient to say, hey, my son is going to be picking it up, then they can, I don't think we need to make any changes here. I think we should, like the security footage thing, keep it broad and at this level of standard of practice, standard of care.
Thank you. Vice President Kirkbride.
Not extremely well versed in these, but I think you could perhaps separate access from who the agent was and the pickup. And those could be one and the same or not. So I've heard about like a PIN to get access. But what I've heard many times is, especially if they're using like one of the machines where there's a screen that the patient is signing something. So to me, that would meet this criteria. And then if you're a pharmacy who is choosing not to, because we don't mandate that, and you can meet all of the criteria and you're not using one of those machines, you would have to come up with your own way to figure out how to log who picked up. To me, this is like when you're picking it up at the pharmacy counter and you sign the little device that you're picking up your prescription. That's what this is, which is different than like maybe a code that like gets you in to get started or opens the door. I don't know. And maybe those are one and the same and they link back to a person's name, but it seems like this is solved by the technology that's commonly used. And then if a pharmacy is not using that technology, it's something they have to figure out how to do in order to meet the rule, but seems to be pretty common with the most commonly used machines. So that's how I think of it.
Thank you for your insight. Board Member Patel.
Board Member Patel, yeah. When I read that one, that exactly I thought too, that when you come to pick up the prescription, you pick up 4 prescriptions, so you're going to have 4 prescription number, and in the bottom there is a signature, and that's how we identified that. And sometimes that signature is just the smiley face. But that's what we identified, that who pick up and who is that patient or patient's agent. That's what my understanding when I was reading it. And now I'm thinking like, identification of the patient, like I hope so not they have to upload their driver license or passport or something. As long as that's what is accepted by board, right? It's the date, time, of course, then there is, you always have date, time, and identification of the patient's agent, that's usually a signature, or in this case, we can even say we send you the PIN code to this email address to this person, and that should be suffice. And contents retrieved, that means like if you're going to put the 4 prescription in the locker box, then they're only going to get 4 retrieved, so.
Thank you. Board Member Pinedo.
Board Member Pinedo, yeah, I agree with Board Member Patel. Half of the time when you ask for a patient to sign for their prescription, they put a line or a smiley face, or they try to be funny about it. I don't know, maybe printed name, printed first and last name of patient or patient's agent. I think as long as that is on there with it, it's clear that we obviously need to know who's getting it, so.
Thank you. Board Member Smith.
Board Member Smith, no comments at this time. Thank you.
Board Member Kroger, further thoughts?
Board Member Kroger, I am fine with the language as long as we feel confident that 6 years down the road, when this board looks completely different, that identification does not mean a driver's license, state ID. And that's not misinterpreted in some manner, because I think that would prevent potentially accessing that. So if we feel good that it won't be interpreted as such down the road, I'm cool with that. And I was trying to think of like, how could we word this differently so that it is more, it's just like acknowledgement of receipt by patient or patient's agent or some other verbiage. And I don't know if haven't landed on anything as I've considered this, that it's just my concern that could this be interpreted? They have to show identification as opposed to just signing, which is acknowledging receipt of the prescription, right? So I think that's kind of where I'm landing. And I don't know if it needs to move, I always like to throw out stuff to really stall conversations. So we don't need to like dwell on this, but it's just something that maybe as, down the road to kind of consider, or if we get more feedback, then we can update it. But that was ultimately my concern, is that could this be interpreted differently? And while yes, this is a recorded, publicly posted meeting where you could go back and listen to this conversation, it's tough to recall that was our intent ultimately.
Thank you, that's helpful. Staff Member from up, I think also keeping in mind, like I obviously have a different hat when I think of things too, and thinking from what like an investigatory stance of how we collect information to provide for the board to assess something. I would ask, since things are broad, I appreciate Vice President Kirkbride's information related to her thought process of kind of like how you would look at this step by step, because that's what we would ask, right? How did you meet this rule? Can you show me that? How did you identify that that's the patient or patient's agent? And they could have done that a litany of ways, right? So it would be getting that information, but if they can't provide a way to identify the patient or the patient's agent, that potentially would be something that would be identified as something the board would want to consider or need to review. And what the so what of that also, right? And how you assess those on a case by case basis. But if clarity is needed, we obviously, again, I can't think of any great language on the fly to say how or not. Someone might want to choose ID to be the easiest way. Like it's not, you can't use ID It's whatever process works for your entity. Thank you for those thoughts. Board Member Chin, what are your thoughts on this discussion?
Board Member Shin really appreciates Board Member Kroger's thoughtful process about the identification word. You know, when I think of, this is an extension of the pharmacy. At the pharmacy, I'm not asked for my photo ID or my passport. And so I wouldn't construe this as being extra for the EPL, not PS. As doing your due diligence of what you do when you're at the pharmacy face to face. But I can really appreciate the thought process behind the word identification. I don't know that we need to change it at this time, but I think it's something to just be mindful of when we're thinking about these rules in the future and seeing how it's actually being used too.
Great thoughts. Thank you. Board Member Hall.
Member Hall, I don't know if we hardly ever have the identification of the patient's agent. I don't know if record, date, time and record of the patient or patient's agent. I mean, it says or, so as long as you know who the patient is, I think the language is okay.
Thank you. And with that, I think we've all gone around to everyone. I wanted to pause. We've reached the end of the potential proposed rule changes, except for obviously all of the repeals that are proposed. At this time, I would hand it back to Board President Joyce to see how you'd like to proceed.
We can go ahead and motion.
Actually, could we go back and look at the security section one more time? There were actually two comments to Board Member Hall's previous comment. Now that we corrected part of it, there was another comment that suggested what is appropriate, parent one, what does appropriate mean? And would something like standard precautions be better? I was looking at a different comment, which was good to fix, but now, like, are we confident what we mean by appropriate? And the submitter's concern is that the PIC could do everything they could to secure it and could still be found at fault if something occurred that was outside of their control. And so what do we consider appropriate? And is there another word? I'm not really a fan of standard precautions because that makes me think of OSHA. But are we good with the word appropriate here and like how we would handle that if a case was before us? So that was just the one thing I thought about after we kind of left this discussion. Make sure we're good with that too.
Yes, that sounds good. We can go around and have that discussion. Staff member F. I just also wanted to share that appropriate is a terminology we use frequently, and I know it's something that is not well liked, right? Because it's really hard to be definitive on what that means. So again, I think one important critical thing to think about and how the world might not be aware and how cases are assessed is that something might be a violation, but because it's a violation doesn't necessarily mean it warrants discipline, right? There are situations we have, one of the great examples is someone might be having an allergic reaction in your pharmacy, you get an EpiPen, you administer it to them to save their life. Technically, that might be a violation of rules, but you just saved someone's life. What's the right? Like doing what a prudent pharmacist would do in that situation. So thinking sometimes about utilizing appropriate security measures to prevent theft and diversion related to, we all know diversion happens, right? It's how you monitor it, how quickly you identify it, and what you do with that information. So having appropriate measures to do that might seem appropriate, but it also might be a duplicative word. You could just say utilize the security measures to prevent theft and diversion, and that might just get you where you need to. And I see Board Member Kroger, please.
Can I go? Okay. All right, so we use the terminology adequate safeguards in our for our security of prescription area. To me, I would love to see continuity throughout our rules. So would we feel better if adequate utilizes adequate safeguards to prevent theft and diversion? Like, and now we've got kind of in both
Strike.
parts of,
Measures and do adequate
and
safeguards.
and you're right, I still think there's some vagueness to this, what is adequate? But we have those conversations all the time to determine,
Adequate
you know,
safeguards.
the various factors, but at least it's the same terminology throughout all of our word, or our rule, perhaps.
Sounds good. Maybe we can go around with another proposal up there and start with Board Member Patel.
Yeah, I agree. Adequate.
So paren one would read utilizes adequate safeguards to prevent theft and diversion. Board Member Pinedo,
Board Member Pinedo, yeah, I like it.
Member Smith,
Member Smith, I like the updated language. Thank you.
Board Member Kroger.
I suggested it.
You're so mad at. Board Member Chin. Board Member Chin.
I concur with board members.
Board Member, oh, sorry. Board Member Hall
Overhaul, I like this.
and Board Member Joyce.
I hate it. No. No, that's fine. Adequate, appropriate, yeah. If you want to be consistent, that's fine.
Vice President Kirkbride.
I like it a lot.
Ooh,
you.
okay, so we will modify that. I do want to then pause for one more moment to then see, is there any other discussion and any other divisions before handing it back to Board President Joyce? And I will just point out for the fee and registration section, there is no fee for PPLs anymore. They are part of the pharmacy, so this was repealed or proposed to be repealed. To make that clear. Any other discussions?
All right. Exciting. Is there a motion to move to send OAR 855-110-0007, OAR 855-143-0001, OAR 855-143-0005, OAR 855-143-0010, OAR 855-143-0015, OAR 855-143-0020, OAR 855-143-0025, OAR 855-143-0030, OAR 855-143-0050, OAR 855-143-0100, OAR 855-143-0120, OAR 855-143-0125, OAR 855-143-0130, OAR 855-143-0150, OAR 855-143-0155, OAR 855-143-0200, OAR 855-143-0205, OAR 855-143-0210, OAR 855-143-0215, OAR 855-143-0220, OAR 855-143-0225, OAR 855-143-0345, OAR 855-143-0500, OAR 855-143-0550, OAR 855-143-0600, OAR 855-143-0602, OAR and OAR 855-143-0650 as revised to the November 2026 rulemaking hearing.
I'll move board member Chin.
There a second?
Board Member Smith.
Board President Joyce, yes. Board Vice President Kirkbride.
Yes.
Board Member Chin.
Yes.
Board Member Hall.
Yes.
Board Member Kroger.
Yes.
Board Member Patel.
Yes.
Board Member Pineda.
Yes.
Board Member Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And then roll on.
President Joyce, Staff Member Melvin, I believe, since we have time, if you would like to discuss the annual board best practices survey with Executive Director Runyon, mailing D is the next item.
Let's go ahead and start with mailing D with Executive Director Runyon. Yeah, let's, yeah, 5 seconds, 5.
5 seconds? So 5 minutes, so is that what you just said?
Of
Okay,
course. 5 minutes.
okay.
Or longer. Do you guys want to take a break?